people start falling away, conversations feel misaligned. Even her own thoughts begin to sound foreign. What she once resonated with suddenly feels too loud, too surface, too small. It's not personal, it's energetic. She is no longer in resonance with who she was, and that shift begins to radiate through her entire field. To the outside world, it may look like she's disappearing, like she's withdrawing. But what they don't see is the subtle internal transformation that's taking place, a recalibration, a retuning. She's not isolating to escape. She's isolating because her frequency is no longer compatible with the noise around her. Frequency is not metaphorical. It's biological, emotional, electromagnetic. Every thought she thinks, every feeling she entertains, every memory she carries, it all emits a signal. And when she begins to upgrade her awareness, when she starts to see herself not as matter, but as energy, she becomes aware of the way her field interacts with her environment. The old world doesn't feel right anymore, not because it changed, but because she did. And so she's pulled inward not by force, but by design. The solitude is not emptiness. It's insulation. It's sacred space being carved out so that she can stabilize the shift without interference. Her nervous system is learning to regulate at a higher frequency. Her cells are recalibrating to a new internal order. Her subconscious programs, ones inherited, absorbed, repeated, are dissolving so that her energy is no longer dictated by survival patterns. This kind of transformation doesn't happen in crowds. It doesn't happen when she's wrapped up in roles or surrounded by energies that reinforce who she used to be. It requires clean space, intentional space, space where she can become coherent again. She begins to feel the difference between being alone and being in alignment, between being disconnected from others and deeply connected to herself. And in that connection, her body becomes the instrument of awareness. She feels when something is off, when someone is draining her. When a room, a conversation, a vibration pulls her out of coherence. She becomes more sensitive, but this sensitivity is her superpower, not her weakness. In isolation, the contrast becomes clear. She no longer tries to fit into energies that don't fit her evolution. She no longer suppresses her truth to make others comfortable. Her silence is no longer a void. It's an upgrade in process. Her solitude is the universe's way of cleansing her field, making her a pure channel for what's to come. As her frequency rises, the low vibrations fall away, not because they're bad or wrong, but because they cannot meet her in this new space. It's not personal, it's physics. And the more she honors this truth, the less she resists the space between what was and what's coming. In this space, she becomes less reactive and more responsive. She no longer seeks validation from energies that cannot hold her bigness. She no longer fragments herself to maintain proximity. She realizes that the loneliness she feared was actually a return to integrity, a full return to her own signal. Would you like me to keep going with the next keynote? Rejection by design. Here's a richly expanded version of a rejection is redirection by design, keeping in the same deeply reflective, energetically aligned tone. It flows naturally with no ending sentence, allowing space for what comes next. At some point, the chosen woman will be met with rejection so sharp, so sudden, so seemingly unjustified, it will make her question everything. She will wonder what she did wrong, what she failed to say, why she wasn't enough, or too much, or too different. The pain will feel personal, but underneath the ache is something precise, something intelligent. So the universe does not subtract without intention. Rejection for her is not punishment. It's architecture. It's the sacred dismantling of what was never meant to carry her forward. When she starts rising in frequency, the old structures, whether people, places, habits, or opportunities, begin to collapse, not because they were failures, but because they served their purpose. They brought her to the edge of a new level, but they cannot enter with her. The ending is not a dead end, it's a corridor. But in order to walk it, she must first release the illusion that the detour was a mistake. She may grieve, she may resist, she may try to reattach to what fell away. But if she listens closely, beneath the ego's discomfort, she'll hear the faint pull of something deeper. A knowing, a recognition that this wasn't just life happening to her. It was life happening for her alignment. Every door that closed was coded with redirection. Every no was a magnetic rerouting. Not to punish her, but to preserve her. To protect her from paths that would have distorted her energy. to steer her away from timelines where her light would have been dimmed just to belong. She begins to realize that being chosen doesn't mean always being accepted. It often means being extracted from places that can't hold her truth, and that extraction is painful. Because the body still remembers the connection, the history, the comfort. The mind wants to understand why it had to end the way it did. But some endings aren't supposed to be understood. They're meant to be obeyed. Not blindly, but energetically, with trust, with surrender, with the wisdom that what looks like loss is often coded with liberation. She starts to see that rejection is rarely about her worth. It's about energetic incompatibility. Her frequency is being attuned to something higher, and anything misaligned begins to feel heavy, forced, even chaotic. Relationships unravel. Projects collapse. Support vanishes. But it's not sabotage, it's selection. The redirection is precise. It arrives exactly when she begins to outgrow her old container. And the moment she tries to shrink herself to fit back in, her body will speak louder. Her intuition will tighten. Her spirit will rebel. Because what she was rejected from was never the destination, it was only the lesson. And the more she resists the rewrite, the longer she delays the opening. She may find herself in a void between where she was and where she's going, and in that space she might feel forgotten. But the truth is, she's being rerouted to the version of herself she prayed for. And everything that could not survive in that vision must fall away, even if it looks like failure, even if it hurts more than she thought it would, even if it comes without warning, without closure, without fairness. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote? They are rewiring identity beyond the known. Here's an expanded, introspective, and energetically rich version of that they are rewiring identity beyond the known, written in that elevated consciousness-driven tone. No ending sentence is included, so it can move seamlessly into the next section. There comes a point when a chosen woman is no longer content to simply shift habits or change her outer world. She knows deeply that the real transformation must happen within. Not on the surface, not in the appearance, not even in the temporary discipline of behavior, but at the level of identity, the most foundational layer of who she believes herself to be. And to do that, she must go beyond what she knows, because who she knows herself to be is a construct. A mosaic of inherited beliefs, mirrored projections, cultural templates, family conditioning, emotional imprints, and stories written by survival. She was shaped before she ever had the chance to consciously create. And now, in this solitary phase of transformation, the woman she's becoming begins to question it all. She watches her thoughts. Not just what they say, but where they come. There is a moment in the chosen woman's journey when she can no longer return to who she was. Not because she despises that version, but because it no longer fits. The shape of her mind has changed. The vibration of her heart has shifted. And yet, she hasn't fully arrived into the new. She's in the in-between, a liminal space where the old identity dissolves and the new one is still being assembled, thread by thread, thought by thought. She's no longer trying to improve the version of herself that was created in response to fear, trauma, expectation, or survival. She is no longer layering affirmations on top of limiting beliefs or chasing worthiness through performance. She's going deeper now into the root system of her being, into the subconscious architecture that has silently dictated the shape of her life for years. It's not a cosmetic shift. It's neurological, it's energetic, it's cellular. She is teaching her body, her brain, her emotional memory to no longer belong to the past. Every time she chooses a new thought, one not born from fear or self-protection, she is interrupting an ancient pattern. Every time she feels an old trigger arise and meets it with presence instead of reaction, she is weakening the wiring that once defined her. Every time she visualizes a future that defies the logic of her past, she is opening a portal into the quantum field of possibility. Oh, the process is subtle. Invisible, even. From the outside, nothing may look different. She still walks through the world, still tends to her responsibilities, still answers to her name. But inside, she's unmaking an entire identity, an identity built through years of repetition, external reinforcement, and energetic entanglement. She's beginning to see that she never was that version, she only believed she was. And belief, repeated often enough, becomes biology. Her nervous system learned to equate familiarity with safety. So even when she wanted change, her body would pull her back into the known, into the habits, the patterns, the people, the dynamics that mirrored the old self. Now she is disrupting that loop. She's witnessing the reflexes of her past without submitting to them. She's choosing again, even when it feels unnatural, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it makes no logical sense. Because this kind of transformation isn't logical, it's quantum. To become who she has never been, she must think thoughts she has never thought, feel emotions she has never been allowed to feel, and behave in ways that defy her programming. This means sitting with discomfort. It means holding new frequencies in the body longer than the old ones held her. It means becoming so conscious of her internal world that she begins to rewrite the code of her reality from the inside out. She is no longer seeking validation because she knows validation is tied to the old identities, need to be seen. She is no longer addicted to struggle because she understands now that struggle once made her feel worthy. She is no longer defining herself by wounds because the future version of her, the one she is becoming, is not built on pain, but on presence. She begins to recognize the subtle voice of intuition over the roar of conditioning. She no longer acts from habit, she responds from coherence. She becomes aware of her breath, her posture, her tone, her thoughts, not as a means to control, but as a way to align. The new identity is a conscious creation. And in this creation, she does not rush. She does not perform healing. She does not chase wholeness like it's outside of her. She slows down, she observes, she makes space. She listens deeply, not just to her mind, but to her body, her field, her future self that is already real in a dimension beyond time. And she lets that vision pull her forward, not through force, but through frequency. Would you like me to continue with the next section? The vision requires a clean channel. There is a point in the chosen woman's unfolding where she no longer seeks her next step from outside of herself. She no longer chases clarity through opinion, consensus, or comparison. She no longer prays to be told what to do, but instead chooses to become the kind of vessel that can receive what's already been waiting for her. And that receiving, that downloading of direction requires something rare in a noisy world. It requires her to be clean. Not clean in perfection, but clean in frequency, clean in consciousness, clean in intention. Because vision doesn't land in distortion. It doesn't root in chaos. The future cannot flow through a system still preoccupied with the past. And so she begins the deeper work, not of reaching, but of clearing. Not of striving, but of surrendering the layers that distort the channel. She clears the old noise, the survival patterns still echoing in her nervous system. The thought loops passed down from generations who only knew how to protect, not expand. The attachments that masquerade as love but feel like pressure. The expectations that belong to other people's versions of her life. She clears the need to be seen, the need to be understood, the need to be right, because she understands now that those needs form static in the channel. Vision requires purity of signal. And so she becomes discerning. Hyper-aware of what she consumes, not just through food, but through energy, conversation, media, environment. Everything has a vibration, and she can feel when something clutters her field. She no longer entertains what pulls her out of coherence, even if it's familiar, even if it's comfortable, even if it once felt like home. She doesn't fast to punish herself. She fasts to refine her frequency. She doesn't meditate to escape life. She meditates to empty herself of noise long enough to hear her own divine intelligence. She doesn't isolate to avoid. She isolates to recalibrate. And through it all, she listens, not just with her ears, but with her entire being. The channel is her whole system. Her breath, her body, her electromagnetic field, her intention, her willingness to be still long enough to receive. This kind of receiving is subtle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't arrive on demand. It arrives in the quiet after resistance is dissolved. It arrives in symbols, in sensations, in knowing that bypasses language. And when it comes, it doesn't flatter the ego. It expands the soul. The vision isn't always grand in the way the world defines grand. It's precise, encoded with purpose, tethered to impact. It is the blueprint of her highest timeline, made real through her willingness to become a match for it. She understands now. The future doesn't just happen to her. It moves through her. And for it to move clearly, her channel must remain unclogged by fear, doubt, comparison, overexertion, or the lingering dust of a version of her that no longer leads. She becomes a mirror, polished through presence. A frequency tower held upright by integrity. A living altar consecrated by devotion to truth, not trend. In this space, the vision sharpens. It becomes less about what she wants and more about what she's here to transmit. She no longer seeks the path that feels popular or easy or proven. She seeks the path that is encoded with her name, the one that reveals itself only when her signal is pure enough to receive it, her field clear enough to hold it, her heart brave enough to obey. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote? They become the field before they manifest the field. The chosen woman reaches a pivotal threshold on her path where she no longer sees manifestation as something she must chase, perform for, or earn. She begins to understand the deeper law. Nothing real can be manifested outside of the energetic field that does not already exist within. The outer is a mirror. The material is a reflection. The future is not a destination to run toward. It's a frequency to inhabit. And so, she stops reaching outward. She starts becoming the thing she was taught to pursue. She stops scripting a version of her life she's not energetically prepared to hold. Instead, she devotes herself to becoming the field, the fertile, resonant space in which her vision can land. This is not about pretending or forcing or mentally repeating what she doesn't yet believe. This is not about faking confidence or bypassing fear with positivity. It's about full embodied coherence, about tuning her emotional, physical, and energetic body to the vibration of what she wants, not just when she meditates, but as a state of being. She begins to feel the nuance. There is no one day in the quantum. There is only now, and her ability to regulate her frequency in this now determines how and when the field around her responds. Because the field does not respond to what she says she wants. It responds to who she actually is beneath the language. It responds to the emotion in her body, to the signal in her heart, to the level of consciousness she is stabilized in, and so she begins the deeper work of embodiment. She doesn't just visualize abundance. She walks like someone who trusts provision. She breathes like someone who knows she's supported. She moves through her day like a woman who already holds the energy of her vision. Her choices are informed by her future. Her posture is shaped by conviction, not control. Her actions become less about proving, more about aligning. In this space, the field around her starts to shift, not because she pushed, but because she matched. She isn't asking reality to do something it's not prepared to do. She's simply stepping into the part of herself that no longer contradicts what she's asking for. To become the field is to dissolve separation. It's to stop seeing the vision as something out there, and to begin embodying the frequency of that reality right here, in this breath, in this moment, in this decision. She learns that the field responds instantly. Not always in physical form, but in signs and synchronicities, in opportunities that match the signal she is sending out. And because she is now the field, she doesn't need to force or convince. Her presence becomes the prayer. Her alignment becomes the invitation. Her being becomes magnetic, not because she's trying to attract, but because she's already aligned with the outcome vibrationally. She's already there, even before the evidence arrives. This kind of embodiment requires vigilance. It requires her to guard her frequency the way one guards sacred fire. It requires her to exit conversations, environments, and thought loops that dilute the signal. It requires her to be more committed to the vibration of her future than the momentum of her past. It requires her to feel worthy now, grateful now, expansive now, even when there's no physical proof yet, because that emotional state is the proof of alignment. She's no longer waiting for signs. She is the sign. She's no longer waiting for the thing to show up. She's becoming the version of herself who holds it with ease. She's no longer begging the universe for timing. She's embodying the frequency that dissolves time altogether. Would you like me to continue with the final keynote? The return is rare and untamed. There comes a sacred stillness in the journey of the chosen woman, a season where the path narrows not when put precision. She finds herself. Not because she failed, not because she's unloved, not because she's broken, but because her frequency has shifted so profoundly that the crowd can no longer hold her. The resonance has changed, And with it, the shapes of her relationships, the contours of her conversations, the anchors of her past attachments begin to dissolve. Aloneness is not absence. It is initiation. It is the space where she begins to hear her own voice without distortion. She becomes the clean channel, the open field, the awakened vessel. She doesn't chase her vision, she becomes it. She doesn't perform power, she transmits it. She doesn't seek the divine, she embodies it. This journey isn't for the faint-hearted. It's for the frequency keepers, the pattern breakers, the timeline shifters, the women who remember that to walk alone is sometimes the only way to walk home. And when she returns, she does so not as who she was, but as the one she came here to be.